Doctor Strangelove is a 1964 comedic drama about the end of the world. Directed by Stanley Kubrick and being a satire about nuclear annihilation during the Cold War, it's not too difficult to see how it could stay in pop culture for so long. And some of the ideas and imagery in this movie, I was going through it and I was like, oh, that's where that came from. Which, hey, that's pretty impressive for a movie that's nearing 60 years old. So, the general plot? Well, a general goes insane and sends bombers to nuke Russia, and several high-ranking politicians and generals try to avert the apocalypse. Now, the threat of nuclear annihilation isn't incredibly apparent in our lives. I mean, at least from my experience, people don't really tend to talk or think about it. But during the Cold War, we now know of several occurrences where just one person saved the entire world from annihilation. Which is, that's pretty scary to think of. So this kind of paranoia about the world ending was quite rampant at this time, which also explains why this movie was so popular. And what also helps is the fact that for a comedy, it did actually have some genuinely funny moments. I mean, I don't want to list them all, but the guy writing the bomb, and I mean, the clip I'm going to show for this movie is another one. Yeah, there was a few times I genuinely laughed out loud, and I was not expecting the jokes, but hey, they're pretty good. I also like the touch for setting the tone, because this is kind of a darker subject matter, and they still establish it as a good black comedy tone. Like the patriotic music over the plane as it's flying over Russia and is about to kill everyone, but it's still, yeah, fuck yeah, America. I thought that was a good touch. That was pretty comedic. And the general and pilot characters were both incredibly campy and incredibly just pro-America, which is also very hilarious. I mean, okay, humor can obviously be subjective, and sometimes it was kind of hit or miss, but still, it established that tone great and prevented it from just being bleak, fucking nightmare. So, I very much appreciated that they were like that, and it was pretty entertaining to watch. It also actually had a few interesting themes about it. It kind of made me think about the bravery of it all, because the soldiers and airmen, they were pretty brave, and well, look what happens from them doing that, but still, they tried to complete their missions no matter what. So yeah, quite interesting. Now, I do have some problems. I mean, this movie is 60 years old, so I mean, some of it's just a product of its time, but the special effects are kind of forgivable, but it's not great, some of them. Like the compositing with the plane over the background. But I can kind of forgive that. But the pacing is just really slow at parts. Where it's just dull, and it's, I mean, it held up better than I thought it would, but yeah. And nothing can help just that, how slow it went at times. Which is unfortunate, but hey. I would still give this a 7 out of 10. It held up better than I thought it would. And is a much, much better black comedy than the next movie.
I would think that possibly 100 years.
You mean people could actually stay down there for 100 years?
It would not be difficult, mein Führer. Nuclear reactors could... I'm sorry, Mr. President.
So you know that movie that everyone keeps going on about? The new release that is everywhere and it's got great reviews? That's right. Don't Look Up is a new political comedy receiving positive and approving reviews. I mean, look at that IMDb score. It must be good. Well, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let's just go through the plot. A comet is coming in 6 months to kill everyone, and the characters are having trouble getting people to do something about it. If you can't tell what this is a metaphor for, you will shortly. Now, my first actual problem with this is, well, if you look at the cast, I mean, it's actually kind of shocking. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Cate Blanchett, Timothée Chalamet, Ariana Grande, Meryl Streep, Chris Evans, Mark Rylance, Jonah Hill. These are people that have been in movies that, some of them I really, really respect. These are people that can act. But, well, I guess it's kind of proof that the director really matters, because their performances are quite lackluster. And, I mean, even if they weren't, it wouldn't even matter. If they were breathtaking and perfect, none of it would matter at all. Because this is, by far, the worst edited movie I have seen in, probably years. It's so fucking bad. There were some moments where I actually started to get sucked in, and I was starting to get into the movie, and then they just cut away. Sometimes before people even finished their lines of dialogue. It would just cut. And this is a common theme. They threw this movie into a butcher shop with someone who was just as bored of the movie as I was. Just chop, chop, chop. Not only ending scenes early, but just throwing in new angles and cuts into it. You could barely just fucking breathe. And I could not get sucked into this movie at all, at any point, because they would not let me. And you know the amazing thing? This movie is over 2 hours long. And because of the editing, it still feels rushed. I got the point of the movie, like, the entire point. This scene after they first meet the president. And that was like 20 minutes in. But it just kept going. And if you want to be doomer about climate change, which is kind of the point of this entire movie, there is a clip, a newsroom clip, about climate change, where Paul, Toby from The Office, gives a better performance than everyone else in this movie. And the best part, that clip is 31 times shorter than this movie. I'll post a link in the description so you can check it out. But it's embarrassing. Now, I've already made my stances clear on climate change, and the broad message from this film is something I guess I can agree with. I mean, it's obviously largely a diss against Republicans, and I mean, there's still some problems I have with it, but I just have to be clear. Even if the movie completely fell in line with my views, everything I listed before about the editing and the performances and the plot, I would still have large troubles with it. Now, unfortunately, I still have to criticize the politics here, because aside from a minor affair plot, there is nothing else to this movie except beating you over the head about how it's about climate change. The delivery of this movie couldn't be more ham-fisted, even if it was elbow deep into a bore. Now, this movie is quite left, as the director, Adam McKay, is a Bernie bro. Which, in itself, that's not that bad. I mean, okay. That's really not that bad. Who cares, okay? Except he's not really a Bernie bro. He's a Bernie or buster, as proven by this quote, where he's talking about how he doesn't really care about political parties at all. Which, okay. He just thinks both of them are just as bad as each other. Which, I mean, are we honestly that surprised, considering the president is an older blonde woman who dresses like that and is more focused on Supreme Court picks than anything else? Yeah, I just can't imagine who that's possibly attacking. Now, of course, this is all a meme where we see the priorities of people who think like this are, and where their priorities aren't. But, I mean, who cares, I guess? It's all about those brownie points. Now, the plot point of the rich billionaire wanting to get those rare minerals was interesting, but it didn't really properly address one of the hardest reasons why climate change is hard to stop. Which is, well, people like living the lives they live. People like driving cars. People like living in suburbs. And people don't really want to get rid of that. And if you go for support for those policies, they're really low. And I mean, I have a video planned about this to cover this kind of topic eventually. But, I mean, that's a pretty big criticism. They're just acting like everyone's with them to do something about this, But if you look at the data, that's kind of what makes this difficult to deal with, is some of the solutions and just stopping what we're doing. It's kind of difficult to do because people don't want to. So, I mean, I honestly find that even more like doomerism, but they just didn't put that in there because they don't understand the issue. Hey, if you wanted to make a political satire about this, maybe you could have made a political satire about people like this director, to the fucking hipsters that don't actually really care about the issue and just virtue signal. But, whatever. Okay, moving on. Now, the reason I chose to combine this movie with Dr. Strangelove is because I saw it get compared to it multiple times. A comparison I find insulting. Dr. Strangelove has truly memorable moments, and there were actually moments I legitimately laughed out loud, or at the very least thought, hey, this is actually really humorous. I mean, and also the interesting characters and the things to ponder, like I mentioned before. Well, all being about the end of the world, a really dark topic. Now, the writing of this movie compared to Doctor Strangelove, that's insanity. A much more apt comparison be to Idiocracy. Now, I want to be clear. Idiocracy has a lot of things about it I really like. But the worst part of that movie for me was just how smug it felt. Like, the fact that the writers thought they were incredibly intelligent, just, it showed through the... It went through the screen into my brain. It's all I could think about. It was so fucking obvious, which is quite annoying. But, hey, that was the worst thing about Idiocracy. And unfortunately, that's also in this movie. Maybe even to a worse degree. You could tell that this director thinks he is incredibly intelligent. And I mean, considering his takes on climate change that we've already seen before, I guess that's not too difficult to see that, that's substantiated. And also, I want to mention that Doctor Strangelove is, well, as I mentioned before, it's an actual comedy. And this movie is also listed as a comedy, which is very, very strange. Because I went into this movie knowing it was a comedy, and by the end of the movie, I completely forgot it was supposed to be. So, there's the president's son not knowing what working class jobs are, the old guy shooting the comet, and the app predicting the old rich dudes getting torn apart by giant birds. Those are the only 3 moments that I can think of that are actually supposed to be jokes. This is a 2-hour and 10-minute movie, and there's 3 jokes in it. It's not a black comedy. I don't know why it would advertise itself as such. It's ridiculous. But, whatever, I guess. Okay, I guess ranting aside, the one good thing I could say is I did properly get me to, feel angry. But that's about it. He had so much going for him with his cast and with a topic that can really rile people up, but it's just such a fucking failure. And compared to other black comedies, it is terrible. So I'm giving this one a 3 out of 10. And I would show a clip so you could determine it for yourself, but...
Who cares?
Well, that's it. Sorry I haven't been making videos in a while. I've been busy. I've been working, like actually working, and going back into school and stuff. It is what it is, but I'll try and get going. I've been working on a project, but the artwork for that really drained me, which is unfortunate. I'm almost finished with it, but I tried something new, and it's not something I think I'll ever do again. But, well. I'll work on that, and I'll try and get that up as soon as I can. I just saw this movie, and I thought that I could just not let it go. Hey, thanks for watching, and see you next time.